We're here to discuss SB 253 from 2023, the Colorado labeling bill that affects compostable products. We're very appreciative to have Malik Gordon from CDPHE to help us go through some of the details of the bill, but also what CDPHE is able to do and not do in terms of enforcement and rulemaking and interpretation. Just to give a little bit of history for those of you who maybe weren't attending our committee calls where we talked about this bill in detail as it went through the legislative process. We'll rewind to late 2022. A number of stakeholders were getting together, putting together this bill. I think part of the inspiration for this bill was looking towards the state of Washington, which I think just the year before had passed a similar bill, although it was broader. It included organics mandates, but it also included a lot of elements that we see in this bill around labeling for compostable products. There are a couple other states as well that have already passed laws requiring elements for compostable products like third-party certification standards like ASTM D6400 and D6868. So we had, I think, kind of a base to build on as far as identifying compostable products and creating standards that aligned with other states. But there were also new elements that we were seeing in Washington and being proposed elsewhere that were getting into color and visual identification to help distinguish compostable products from non-compostable contaminants. And also trying to prohibit the use of misleading terminology or misleading symbols or unsubstantiated claims that confuse the marketplace and contribute to that contamination. I don't know if the original, but a draft of the bill during session included a more broad suite of colors. So it started off with green, brown, and beige as acceptable colors for compostable products. That matched the bill in Washington, House Bill 1799 that I just referenced that had passed the year before. As the bill reached towards the end of session and some of the final votes, there were some chaos and some amendments that were thrown in. I'm not here to point fingers, but more to just make sure folks are understanding of the history and sort of how we got here. One of the amendments, for reasons I won't get into, that didn't necessarily have to do with compostable products, but ended up limiting the field of acceptable colors to just green and eliminated beige and brown as an option. As we'll, I think, get to with some of the details, Colorado does allow for more flexible use of green, even if the color palette, if you will, is more restrictive than what Washington HB 1799 provided. But that was a result of a late amendment. That wasn't something that BPI had suggested or that most folks necessarily supported. And I think, to be honest, some of the impacts of those late amendments were maybe not known or realized until we were already at the final vote. Or close to the final vote. One of the other things that happened, politically speaking, is that there were, I think, movements among parties in the legislature and some filibustering that included basically requiring everyone to read word by word the entire bill during some of the later hearings. And so in response, and this did not just affect this bill 253, but many bills in the Colorado legislature were shortened so that they could be read and then discussed and voted on towards the end of the legislature. So I guess what I would call the compression of 253 did, I think, also compress some of the categories, which I think has led to some confusion about what's in, what's out, what applies to plastic products only versus all products. And then, of course, CDPHE will is doing their best to interpret the language that they were given. So not here to suggest that this is a perfect bill by BPI standards. You all, I think, are aware that we have developed principles around on-product labeling, but I think there are a lot of elements of this bill that, regardless of some of the hijinks towards the end of the session, we're really excited about. And hopefully we'll kind of have a clearer understanding at the end of this webinar of what products are affected, what aren't affected, what is considered compliant, what isn't compliant, and what questions there might still be, or what limitations there might be in terms of interpretation or enforcement. I'll stop there. Again, want to really extend a thank you to all of CDPHE and especially Malik for being here today to talk through, as the agency overseeing this bill, how they're approaching it and the tools that they've developed already that I know will be shared, and resources as well, and how we can work together moving forward. So with that said, I'll pass it over to you, Malik, to talk about some of the details of 253.
Hello there. Let me get my screen shared going on. Like Alex said, my name is Malik Gorton, pronouns he, him. I'm an environmental protection specialist with the state of Colorado, the Department of Public Health and Environment, or CDPHE. Today, I'm going to be speaking about SB 23253, Standards for Products Represented as Compostable. I will refer to it moving forward as SB 253, just to shorten that language a little bit. I've been in this role for about 2 years. My main role is overseeing paint stewardship, but this last year I've taken on the education and outreach for this law. So I'm gonna get into it here. Let's see if my screens are moving. The act itself creates standards for products represented as compostable. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. The scope is limited to food service products and plastic products, and just have to remember that moving forward. The bill itself can sometimes jump around in the definitions, but this is really what we are looking at. We're looking at food service products and plastic. So food service products being anything that's intended for one-time use and is used for food or drink that is offered for sale or use. And then we know what plastic products are. I think the one addition to this, or thing I will point out, is it also includes products that, whether they're alone or have plastic in addition to another product, like paperboard. So a PLA lined paper cup, for example, would constitute a plastic product. Why is SB 253 put in place? Well, falsely marketed food serviceware packaging products as compostable create confusion, causing undue cost burden on consumers. It increases costs and operational challenges for compost manufacturers. It contaminates the compost stream and reduces the value of finished compost or makes it unmarketable. A quick timeline of SB 253. It was signed into law on May 17th, 2023. And then January 1st was the first language in the statute that went into place. So that was the marketing and advertising prohibitions for plastic products that are not certified compostable. So I like to think of the January 1st being the deadline for the bad actors to come into compliance. So, this is really intended to look at products that are intentionally confusing consumers and harming the compost stream. And then that July 1st deadline is really the requirements for products represented as compostable. So the ones that the deadline that you all are more interested in learning more about, that there's a little bit of caveat to that. So I don't want to say that that is entirely true, but we'll get into the details here shortly. And then our role in this is education outreach. So we're educating, putting information out to retail establishments, consumers, producers, and retailers. All of our information can be found at our webpage, which I will have Alex share with you at some point during this presentation, and I will point out all the resources we have available to you all. We also have a complaint form on the website that's been developed. So anybody from the public, a producer, just a regular person from the public, can submit a complaint form on our website, and that information is then reviewed by the materials management unit. And if we see the complaint as a legitimate complaint and in violation of SB 253, then we will pass that on to the Attorney General's office for enforcement. One other thing is I've included the sections of the statute at the bottom of the slide when it is relevant, or when it's not a general statement about the statute. So if you're looking for the information and want to be able to reference it directly, that information is there on the slide for you. And then just a couple other things that I think are important to point out is the act did not include rulemaking authority or funding beyond the first year of implementation. So what that means for us is that we must interpret the requirements of the statute directly as they were written. So it does not give us a lot of wiggle room in terms of interpretation or clarification of the law. So just be aware of that when you are reaching out to us with questions, that you may be able to figure it out yourselves ahead of time or be able to maybe predict how our answers are going to be formed based on that. I know a lot of you have already reached out to us to clarify some of the Act's requirements, and we'll do our best to answer the questions, but just be aware that that is the part of what, just some additional context for this. And then just a reminder that this act is limited to food service products and plastic products. Okay, let's get into the key provisions here. I separated this out into two sections. So the January 1st deadline, which is under section 804, and then I'll talk about the July 1st deadline, and I believe that is section 803. So the January 1st, 2024 deadline is in regards to marketing and advertising prohibitions for food service products and plastic products that are not certified compostable. So some of those prohibitions include tinting, color schemes, labeling, or words that are required for products represented as compostable. I know I haven't gone into those yet, but I will when we talk about the July 1st key provisions. And then prohibitions on labeling images or words that could be reasonably anticipated to mislead consumers into believing that the product is compostable. So these are the 6 words that are intentionally called out, but it is not limited to these words. Any words that are similar to these could also be included in that. And then lastly, the one that does apply to you all as certified compostable manufacturers would be the compostable products shall not advertise or market with a chasing arrow identification code or recycling symbol of any form. And that went into place on January 1st as well. Okay, I'm going to move into July 1st. And I know I'm moving through these quickly. I promise that there'll be information available, and I'll show you where all the resources so that you could see them after the fact. So this is in section 803. The key provisions here are that a producer or product that is sold, offered for sale, or distributed in the state shall not represent the product as compostable in Colorado unless it is certified compostable with ASTM D6400 or D6868. And to the extent consistent with Federal Trade Commission guidelines and ensures the product is distinguishable as certified compostable upon quick inspection. And I'm gonna just highlight that as like that it needs to be distinguishable on quick inspection, whether that be at a sorting area, a processing facility, or the point of sale or point of use. So the compostable product and packaging must display a certification logo that indicates the product is compostable, display the word compostable where possible, and use green colored labeling or striping or other easily recognizable green symbols, colors, tinting, marks, or design patterns that differentiate the product from products that are not certified compostable. So these are really the 3 key pieces for you all that you need to be considering when looking at your products. Okay, I threw a lot at you. I want to make a plug for one of our resources, which is our flowchart that is located on our webpage. This is at the bottom of the webpage in the resource section, and will be hyperlinked there. Unfortunately, I can't just like send the link out because it's a PDF document. But this will help you decide if you are within the scope. So it's and where within the scope you are, because if we really think about this, there are 2 different pieces that we need to consider. Are you a certified compostable product, or are you a non-certified compostable product, and which requirements are going to be the ones that you need to follow based on that? So the flowchart is here, and then on that document, there's also these 2 boxes that break down what the pieces are that you all will need to comply with. So I think this is really helpful, and I think takes the statute and really truncates it down to the information that you need to know. So I would highly recommend taking a look at it in order to determine where you all fall under it, depending on the product that you're looking at. Okay, and then there are a few other pieces to this July 1st piece that I just want to make sure that we cover. One of those is being product accessories. So these are the products that are sold with another product. So think of a lid or a straw or a label on a cup. They are subject to the same certified compostable requirements as food service products and plastic products. That said, if they are not certified compostable, they must display on the product and packaging a label that describes the recyclability of the product accessory or includes the phrase landfill only. This information is also in that flowchart. And then lastly, small products, which can be a product accessory or a food service product. This is a small product has a width of 1/2 inch or less of printable surface space. So think straws or utensils. And they're only required to comply with one of the 3 requirements. So the 3 requirements being, and when I'm referring to this, I am talking about certified compostable products. So they must display a certification logo that indicates the product is certified compostable, or display the word compostable, or use green colored labeling or striping or easily recognizable green symbols, colors, tinting, marks, or design patterns that differentiate the product from products that are not certified compostable. And then finally, the requirements in the Act do not apply to a product comprised entirely of untreated wood. So wood is a renewable wood or fiber-based substrate, and then untreated wood being it's not treated with anything, with any chemicals intended to resist decomposition. One caveat to this would be a paper product that has a plastic lining on it, as I had mentioned earlier, that would still fall within the requirements of the statute. But anything that sort of fits out of that would not be under the scope of the Act. Also, if it is not a food service product, would also fall outside of the Act as long as it's untreated wood. Okay. Just gonna, this is the information again, just placed out on the screen just because I figured it is the easiest way to see it all out in front of you. And this is really the remainder of my slides. I do have a resource slide and a thank you slide, but I figured that this may be the one that is of most interest for folks.
Great, thanks, Malik. Appreciate that. Thank you again. Huge thanks, Malik, for putting these slides together, for CDPHE putting these resources together, which of course are ongoing. So I'm sure the FAQ section will evolve over time, and we'll continue to be in touch with you all.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I appreciate everybody attending and BPI for hosting.